Elias Mercer was not the kind of man who liked surprises. He had moved to the forest years ago to get away from noise, cities, and people. His small wooden cabin was simple, just a fireplace, a water pump, and solar panels for electricity. No internet, no phone, just trees, stars, and peace. That night around 2 a.m., something changed. He woke up to a loud crack in the woods followed by a strange humming sound, like metal grinding against metal. At first he thought it might be a bear knocking over his old shed. But when the humming stopped and a soft blue glow lit up the sky for just a second, Elias sat up straight in bed. This wasn't a bear. He grabbed his flashlight and rifle and stepped outside. The forest was quiet now, too quiet. Even the crickets had stopped chirping. His boots crunched softly on the leaves as he walked past the cabin and toward the sound. Then he saw it. Near the edge of the clearing, where the pine trees grew thick, something was lying on the ground. It wasn't an animal. It was too tall, too shiny. Elias pointed his flashlight and took a slow step forward. It was a woman. No, not just a woman. An alien. She was taller than any person he'd ever seen, maybe 7 feet, and wore strange black and silver armor that looked burnt and broken in places. Her skin was dark bronze, and her eyes, glowing faintly purple, were locked onto his. Elias froze. She raised one arm, shaky, wounded, and pointed a long spear-like weapon at him. Before he could even say a word, she spoke. "Your species is not supposed to be intelligent." The words hit Elias like a punch. Her voice was strong but tired. The accent was strange, but the English was clear. He lowered his rifle slowly. "I could say the same about you," he replied, not even sure why. The alien woman blinked. Then she collapsed. Elias didn't move for a few seconds. Every instinct told him to run back to the cabin and lock the door. But something about her, maybe the way she had spoken, maybe the pain in her eyes, made him act differently. He ran to her side, dropped his rifle, and checked for a pulse. Her skin was warm. Her breathing was shallow but steady. He noticed a long cut on her leg and a strange burn on her shoulder. Some of her armor looked melted, and blue liquid, her blood, was leaking from under the plates. "Damn it," he muttered. "You're hurt bad." He couldn't carry her easily, but he managed to pull her slowly, step by step, back to the cabin using a sled from his woodpile. She didn't wake up. Once inside, he laid her down near the fireplace, grabbed his first aid kit, and started treating the wounds. To his surprise, her skin sealed up quickly when cleaned, and the blue liquid hardened like glue. She had some kind of self-healing reaction. Elias patched her as best he could, then sat back and watched the firelight flicker across her armor. What the hell was going on? She didn't look like anything from Earth. Not a costume, not a trick. Her armor was full of tiny lights and unreadable symbols. And that weapon, a spear made of metal and what looked like energy, was unlike anything he'd seen before. She stirred around sunrise. Elias was half asleep in a chair, but he woke up fast when he heard her move. She sat up slowly, then looked around the cabin. Her eyes landed on him. "You helped me," she said, her voice quieter now. "Yeah," he replied. "Seemed like the right thing to do. I could have killed you. You still might." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she put the spear down beside her and leaned back against the wall. "My name is Vela Kor," she said. "I'm a warrior of the Zir Dominion. This world was not meant to be touched." "Well," Elias said, rubbing his chin, "you landed in the wrong place for that." She closed her eyes for a moment, tired but calm. "No, I didn't land. I crashed. I was being hunted. They will come." Elias felt a chill run down his spine. "Who's they?" Her eyes opened again. "The ones who clean up problems. If they find me, they will destroy this entire area, including you." Elias stood and walked to the window. The forest looked the same as always, quiet, green, peaceful. But it wasn't peaceful anymore. Behind him, Vila said one more thing. "I broke the rules by coming here." "But you broke the rules by being more than they expected." Elias looked back at her, confused. She nodded slowly. "Humans were not supposed to be intelligent, and yet here you are." Elias was not sure what surprised him more, that an alien was sitting in his cabin, or that she spoke perfect English and called humans more than expected. He watched her carefully. Vila, the alien warrior, looked stronger than before. Her armor was still cracked, but her wounds were healing quickly. She had rested all morning, and now she sat near the fire, her strange purple eyes watching him as much as he watched her. Elias made tea on his old gas stove and poured a cup for himself. Then, after a short pause, he poured another and placed it in front of her. "I don't know what you drink," he said, "but this might not kill you." Vela looked at the cup, raised an eyebrow, and picked it up. She sniffed it, then took a small sip. Her eyes widened. "This is warm," she said. "Simple, but good." Elias smiled a little. "That's what most people say about tea." There was a short silence. Then Elias leaned forward. "You said someone's coming for you, that they'd destroy this place. Who are they?" Viola placed the cup down and stared into the fire. "They are called the Varkun," she said quietly. "Not a species, a weapon. Grown, not born. Bred to clean up problems like me." Elias frowned. "You don't sound like a problem." "I wasn't," she said. "Not at first. I served the Zir Dominion for 12 cycles. I was loyal. I believed in their laws, and what changed? I found a file," she said. "A secret report about Earth. Your planet was classified as undeveloped, primitive, unsafe for contact. But the data was old. Too old. You'd already passed many stages of growth. Language, machines, space travel. You even touched the edge of your moon." Elias tilted his head. "We've been to the moon. Sent robots to Mars." Vela nodded slowly. "I know, but the Council ignored it. They said Earth was too dangerous. A death world, violent, unpredictable. They told everyone to stay away, to never engage." Elias laughed softly. "They're not wrong about the violent part." "Maybe," she said. "But they were afraid. Not of your weapons, but of your minds, your will. You don't give up. You don't break easy. And that scared them." Elias sat back. He didn't know what to say. This was too big. Aliens had known about Earth, watched it, judged it, and decided to avoid it like some kind of cursed place. "But you came anyway," he said. "I had to see for myself," she replied. "I stole a scout ship. I entered the atmosphere quietly. I thought I could land, observe, then leave. But the Varkun followed me. They must have tracked my ship." "And you crashed," Elias said. "Yes." He stood and walked to the window. The sun was starting to set now. Orange light stretched across the trees. But the peace he used to love felt different today. Not safe, not silent. Just waiting. "I've lived out here for 10 years, he said. "Got tired of cities, people, war, everything. Came out here to be alone." Viola looked at him carefully. "You are not like most humans I expected," Elias chuckled. "Most humans I knew wouldn't expect this either." She gave him a small, strange smile, the first one since she arrived. Suddenly, a sharp beep echoed through the room. Elias turned. A small motion detector on the wall blinked red. Something was moving in the forest. He quickly grabbed the rifle hanging near the door. Viola stood up at once, her eyes focused. "How many sensors do you have?" she asked. "4, he said. "1 to the north, 1 south, 1 near the creek, and 1 at the road." She moved to the sensor panel. "Which one just triggered?" "The creek," he replied. Viola's face grew serious. "That's the side I crashed on." Elias tightened his grip on the rifle. "You think it's the Varkun?" He asked. "Yes," she said. "They hunt by heat, sound, movement. If they're here, they'll watch us first, study us, then we need to hide." "No," she said. "We prepare." For the next hour, Elias and Vela worked together. He showed her the traps he had built over the years. Tripwires, spikes, alarms. Vela adjusted the placement using her knowledge of tracking and warfare. They set up warning systems, checked escape routes, and blocked off windows. By the time night fell, the cabin was a small fortress. They sat by the fire again, tired but alert. Elias poured more tea. Viola accepted it without a word. "I never thought I'd be defending my cabin from aliens," he said softly. "And I never thought I'd be drinking tea with one," she replied. Outside, the forest was quiet again, but both of them knew it wouldn't stay that way. The forest was still, but Elias could feel something had changed. The air was heavier. Even the wind had stopped. Inside the cabin, only the soft sound of the fire and the quiet hum of Vela's armor could be heard. Elias sat by the window, watching the trees. His rifle rested on the table beside him. Viola stood near the door, holding her spear. She hadn't spoken for several minutes. Her glowing eyes stayed focused on the woods. "They're out there, aren't they?" Elias asked quietly. "Yes," Vela replied. "They are watching us now." Elias had never seen one of these Varkun creatures, but the way Viola spoke about them told him enough. They weren't animals. They weren't machines. They were something in between, fast, silent, and deadly. What do they look like? He asked. Vela took a slow breath. Tall, bone-colored armor. Long limbs. They don't speak. They don't feel pain. They are made to hunt and erase. Elias frowned. Erase? They leave no witnesses, she said. No signs. No second chances. Elias stood up and checked the last of his traps. The wires were tight, the alarms ready. He had lived through storms, bears, even a wildfire once. But this was different. This was not Earth's danger. This came from the stars. I don't like being hunted, Elias muttered. Then we fight smart, Vela said. She handed him a small black device, no larger than a coin. This is a sound beacon. Throw it far and it will make noise, enough to distract them. Use it only if you must. Elias nodded and placed it in his pocket. Suddenly, a soft click echoed outside the window. It was one of the tripwires near the shed. Elias ran to the other side of the cabin and flipped a switch. A small screen showed a shaky image from a camera hidden in the trees. For just a second, something moved. Fast and pale, just beyond the range of the lights. There, Elias whispered. Something's close. Vela didn't wait. She moved toward the back door, her spear glowing faintly. Elias followed with his rifle. They stepped out into the cold night air, silent as shadows. The shed stood about 20 meters away. One of the motion lights flickered, then shut off. Elias cursed under his breath. They crept forward. Elias had walked this path 100 times, but tonight every step felt heavy. Every branch that cracked underfoot made his heart beat faster. They reached the shed. Viola raised her hand, signaling him to stop. Then with a smooth motion, she kicked the door open and aimed her weapon. Nothing. The shed was empty. But something had been here. Viola crouched and touched the ground. A long scratch ran across the dirt, deep and sharp like from claws. She stood slowly. They are testing us, she said, studying how we react. Elias looked around. The trees loomed over them like giants. Can we beat them? If we're careful, she replied. If we use what we know. They returned to the cabin. Once inside, Elias shut the door and locked it tight. Vela activated a device on her wrist. A small blue map floated in the air. It showed the forest, the cabin, and 4 red dots moving nearby. They're spreading out, she said, surrounding us. Elias stared at the dots. Why haven't they attacked? They want to be sure I'm here, Viola answered. And they want to see what you are. Me? Yes, she said, looking at him. They have never faced a human before. You are unknown. Elias laughed nervously. That makes 2 of us. Suddenly, one of the red dots moved fast, straight toward the cabin. They're coming, Vela said. Elias aimed his rifle at the door. Viola stood beside him, her spear crackling with energy. Then, silence. Seconds passed. Then boom, the back window shattered. A pale shape flew inside, fast like lightning. Elias fired. The sound was deafening. Viola moved faster than any human, slicing her spear through the air. The creature screamed in a sharp, high-pitched sound and vanished back through the window, bleeding dark green liquid across the floor. Elias lowered his rifle. His hands were shaking. What was that? A scout, Viola said. A warning. Elias looked at her. A warning for who? For us, she replied. The others will come now. She walked to the broken window and stared into the trees. Elias joined her. Out there, among the shadows, more pale shapes moved, not scared, not rushing, but watching, waiting. They think we're weak, Viola said. Elias nodded. Let's prove them wrong. Elias had never seen blood that color before, dark green, almost black. It stained the wooden floor near the broken window, slowly drying into something like tar. He stared at it for a few seconds, then turned to Viola. That thing wasn't like anything I've ever seen. Viola was already working. She pulled a panel off her spear, revealing a small set of controls and blinking lights. That was just one, she said calmly. The others will be smarter, faster, more careful. Elias picked up a broom and pushed the thick liquid into a corner. It didn't smell like blood, but it left a strange cold feeling in the air, like metal and ice. What do they want from you? He asked. They want me gone, she replied. The Zir Dominion doesn't allow failure or rebellion. I left without permission. They can't let me live. Elias looked around the cabin. Well, they sure picked the wrong place for a quiet mission. Vela gave a small nod, almost a smile. I agree. They had a few hours until sunrise. Maybe less. The red dots on Vela's map were moving again, circling, probing the defenses, testing their timing. The traps had slowed them down but not stopped them. Can we kill them? Elias asked. Vela didn't answer right away. She closed the panel on her spear and stood up. Yes, she said, but not easily. They are fast. They think like hunters, but they don't understand humans. Elias raised an eyebrow. What's that supposed to mean? You fight different, she said. You use instinct, anger, surprise, you make things from nothing. That's why they're afraid. Elias smiled a little. Glad to know my bad temper might help save the world. Outside, the wind picked up. A branch scraped across the roof. Somewhere deep in the woods, something howled. Not a wolf, not anything natural. Viola walked to the door and placed her palm on it. Her armor glowed slightly and a thin shield of light spread across the frame. That will hold for a while, she said. Not forever. Elias checked his ammo again. Only 6 bullets left. Not enough for a full war, but maybe enough to buy time. We can't stay here, he said. What if we run? They'll follow. Until we're dead, Elias thought for a moment. Then he looked at the fireplace. Then maybe we don't run, he said. Maybe we make them come to us. Viola turned to him. Explain. He grabbed a few old fuel cans from the shed, dragged them inside, and placed them near the windows. If they want to come in, we give them a welcome. Loud and hot. Vela studied the cans, then nodded. Fire is useful. They do not like it, Elias smiled. Nobody likes fire when they're on top of it. Together, they built the trap. Oil-soaked rags, broken glass, sharp nails. Anything that could cause confusion or pain. Elias had learned how to make traps in the military, but he never thought he'd use them like this. When they finished, Elias took a moment to sit by the fire. You don't have to stay, he said to Viola. I know I'm just one man. You could leave, escape, find another place. Vela sat across from him, holding her spear. I came here to learn about your kind, she said. Now I have. And I will not leave you to die. Elias looked at her, surprised. There was no fear in her voice, only calm. Only choice, thanks, he said simply. Then the lights went out, all of them. The solar battery, the motion sensors, even the small glow from Viola's map. Darkness. They're here, she said. Elias stood up and grabbed his rifle. Outside the sounds began. Slow footsteps, then scratching, then something like whispering, but without words. A shape moved past the window. Another crawled across the roof. They were all around now. Get ready, Viola said. The first creature hit the door with a loud crack. The shield held. For now. Another crashed into the side of the cabin, testing the wood, the walls, the weak points. Elias lit a match and held it near the rags. Just say when. Viola stepped to the center of the room, her spear spinning in her hand. They think we will panic, she said. Let them think that. The front window shattered. A pale hand reached in. Elias lit the fuel. The fire exploded with a roar. The cabin filled with heat and smoke, but the creatures screamed and pulled back. The flames danced across the traps, lighting the glass and metal. A creature fell through the window and landed hard. Viola was on it in seconds, her spear piercing its armor with a crack of energy. Elias fired at another, trying to climb through the side. It shrieked and disappeared. For the next few minutes, there was chaos, smoke, heat, flashes of light, strange sounds. But then, silence. The creatures were gone, or hiding. The cabin was damaged, but still standing. Viola stood at the window, her armor glowing faintly. Elias wiped sweat from his face. Did we win? He asked. Viola looked into the trees. No, she said. That was only the first wave. Smoke still floated through the cabin as Elias sat against the wall, catching his breath. The fire had died down, but the heat still hung in the air like a warning. Pieces of broken wood and metal were scattered across the floor. The smell of burned oil and alien blood filled the room. Viola stood at the broken window, her eyes scanning the tree line. Elias coughed and looked around. This place used to be peaceful, you know, quiet. I built it for peace. She glanced back at him. It is no longer quiet. No, he said, chuckling dryly. It's not. He pushed himself up and checked his rifle. Only 2 bullets left. He knew they wouldn't be enough. Tell me something, Elias said. If the Varkun are just the first wave, how many waves are there? Viola didn't answer right away. She looked down at her wrist panel, tapping a few buttons. The map flickered, then came back on, dim but working. 3, she finally said. Scouts, hunters, and command. So we just fought the scouts? Yes, the hunters will come next. They are larger, stronger, they don't test. They attack. Elias rubbed his face. Great. That's just what I needed to hear. Vela turned away from the window. She looked tired. Her armor had fresh cracks and her left shoulder sparked now and then. You need rest, Elias said. I'll heal, she replied. My armor can repair itself. Slowly. Elias walked over to the small cabinet and pulled out 2 cans of food. He handed one to her. Not as good as tea, he said, but it'll keep you going. She took it, opened it with one of her tools, and ate in silence. Elias sat beside her. The cabin was quiet again, but this time the silence felt heavier. Not peaceful, not comforting, just waiting. After a few minutes, Elias spoke again. Why did you really come to Earth, Vila? You said it was to learn, but I don't buy that. You risked everything. There had to be more. Vila didn't answer at first. Then she placed her food down and looked at him. I was tired, she said softly. Tired of orders. Tired of lies. The Zir Dominion rules everything in our part of space. They say they protect life, but they only protect their control. When I read about Earth, I saw something different. Different how? You fight. You argue. You build and destroy. But you do it on your own terms. No one controls your spirit. You move forward even when it hurts. Elias listened closely. He had never heard anyone describe humans like that before. I wanted to see that spirit, she continued. And now? I have. There was something honest in her voice. Something that didn't come from military training or alien pride. It came from somewhere deep. Something very human. Elias looked at the fire. Well, he said. You picked the right cabin. Vela smiled, and a small, tired smile, but real. Just then the sensor beeped again. Elias rushed to the panel. The screen showed 3 red dots, larger than the ones before. They were moving fast, one straight toward the cabin. They're here, he said. Vela stood and grabbed her spear. Hunters. Elias didn't wait. He grabbed the last sound beacon and handed it to her. Let's draw them away from the cabin, he said. We can't survive another attack in here. Vela nodded. There's a clearing east of here. Less cover. Good for traps. I know the place, Elias said. Let's go. They moved fast, using the back path behind the cabin. Elias knew every tree, every stone. He led her through the woods, stepping over roots and ducking under low branches. Soon, they reached the clearing in a wide, flat space surrounded by rocks and thin trees. Elias quickly placed sharp sticks in the grass, tied wire between trees, and set small cans to rattle if disturbed. Vela climbed onto a large rock and placed the sound beacon in the center. She activated it. A high-pitched noise echoed through the forest. Strange and mechanical, not like anything natural. Now we wait, she said. They hid behind the rocks. Elias held his rifle. Vela crouched beside him, her spear glowing again. Minutes passed. Then they came. The first hunter was huge, nearly 8 feet tall, with armor like bone and eyes like glass. It stepped into the clearing, looking around. Behind it came 2 more, moving in a strange, smooth way like predators ready to strike. One of them hit the wire trap. The cans rattled. The creature roared, not loud but sharp like metal grinding. Vela leaped out from behind the rock. Her spear shot forward like lightning, striking the first hunter in the chest. Sparks flew. Elias fired at the second one, aiming for the joints. The bullet hit. The creature stumbled. The third hunter rushed toward Elias, fast and angry, but it stepped into the pit of sharpened sticks and let out a hiss of pain. Vela finished the first one with a spinning strike, then turned to help Elias. Together they fought, not like soldier and stranger, but like a team. In just a few minutes, it was over. 3 hunters lay broken in the clearing. Elias leaned on his rifle, breathing hard. Are we done? Vila looked toward the sky. It was still dark, but a faint blue line had started to form at the horizon. No, she said. The command will come next, and they will not be hunting. They will be erasing. Elias looked at her, his eyes sharp. Then we make a stand, he said. And beside him, Vela nodded. The morning light was cold and gray as it slowly rose behind the trees. The forest was quiet again, but Elias knew it wasn't over. The bodies of the hunters lay still in the clearing. Smoke rose from their wounds. Whatever they were made of, it didn't look like any metal Elias had seen before. Vela stood near one of the fallen creatures. She had removed her helmet, revealing more of her face. Sharp features, glowing lines across her skin, and eyes that seemed to see everything. Elias watched her in silence for a moment. Her armor was scratched and dented. Her movements were slower now, and he could tell the fight had taken a toll. But still she stood tall. "We should go," he said softly. Vela nodded. "Yes, the command will track us now." They never wait long. They moved through the forest quickly, heading away from the cabin. Elias knew a place further north, an old radio tower left behind years ago. It sat on top of a rocky hill with a full view of the valley. It wasn't much, but it was higher ground, and that was better than hiding in the trees. As they walked, Elias thought about everything that had happened in the past 2 days. His quiet life in the woods, his peaceful mornings, his routine, all gone. But something inside him had woken up. Something he hadn't felt in years. He was fighting again, not for a war or a flag, but for someone. For himself. For Earth. "How far is the tower?" Viola asked, breaking the silence. "Another 20 minutes, Elias replied. "We can see everything from up there. Maybe even call for help." "From who?" He gave her a tired smile. "I don't know, but it's better than standing still." They reached the base of the hill just as the sun broke fully over the horizon. The sky was clear, but a strange tension filled the air, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Elias helped Viola climb the rocky path. Her steps were slower now. She had taken a deep hit in the last fight, something in her side. But she didn't complain. She just moved forward. When they reached the top, Elias opened the rusted door of the tower station. Inside, dust covered everything. Old computers, empty chairs, broken radios. But the walls were strong, and the height gave them a good view of the valley below. They could see the forest, the clearing, even the smoke from the cabin. Viola walked to the edge of the tower and looked out. "They are coming." Elias followed her gaze. A line of black dots moved through the trees. Slow, perfect, organized. Not like the scouts. Not like the hunters. These were something else. "How many?" he asked. "At least 6, maybe more." "Great." Elias checked the old equipment. Most of it was dead, but one panel still had power. He pressed a few buttons. Static filled the air, then a weak signal flickered on a small screen. "Is that a distress beacon?" Viola asked. "Sort of," Elias said. "Old military tech. If someone's listening, they'll hear it." She nodded. "It may not be enough." "I know," he replied. They spent the next hour preparing. Elias set more traps along the path up the hill. Viola used parts from her armor to create energy spikes, small blue devices that could shock anything that touched them. As they worked, the silence between them changed. It wasn't heavy anymore. It was focused, shared. Elias looked at her as she connected a power cell to the wall. "When this is over, what happens to you?" Viola paused. "If we survive?" "Yeah, I will be hunted," she said. "Forever. But I will keep running. You could stay," he offered. "Earth's big. There are places they'll never find you." Viola gave him a strange look. Not surprised, but almost hopeful. "You would hide me?" Elias shrugged. "You saved my life. Twice now. And I don't know. I kind of like having you around." Viola didn't smile, but her eyes softened. "You are strange, Elias," she said quietly. "I've been told that." A low humming sound interrupted them. It came from the valley, deep and steady like a giant machine waking up. Viola turned, her hand going to her weapon. "The command," she said. "They bring heavy armor. Weapons that tear mountains. They will not stop." Elias looked at the horizon. "They don't know us," he said. "Not yet." Viola stepped beside him. "Then we show them." Below them, the dark figures moved closer. Their shapes were larger, thicker, with glowing eyes and weapons that pulsed with energy. Elias checked his last bullets. Only one left. Viola held her spear tight. Her armor flickered once, then steadied. This was it, the final wave. Not just a fight for survival, but for something more. For freedom. For Earth. For each other. The sun had fully risen, spilling pale light across the valley. From their perch on the tower, Elias and Viola could see the command's forces moving through the trees like a tide of black and silver, larger than the hunters, faster than the scouts, Their energy weapons glowed faintly, pulsing like stars in motion. Elias swallowed hard. He had survived storms, bears, and even a wildfire. But this was different. This was not nature. This was the galaxy itself, and it was coming for them. Vela placed a hand on his shoulder. Stay calm. Observe, predict. That is how we survive. Elias nodded. Right. Predict. Got it. They spent the next hour studying the movements of the command forces. Vela's sensors and Elias's understanding of the terrain combined to form a plan. The path up the hill was narrow and rocky, perfect for funneling the enemy. They set traps along the sides and reinforced their position with fallen logs and energy spikes Vela had built. I'll create a diversion, Vela said. They will think I am the main target. You focus on the path. Elias held his rifle tight. He had only a few bullets left, but he trusted his traps and Vela's skill. Got it. Let's do it. As the first wave of command forces entered the clearing, Vela leaped down from the tower, moving with astonishing speed. Her spear flashed blue light as she struck at the nearest enemy. Disorienting them instantly, the force stumbled into the traps and sparks flew. Elias fired carefully, hitting joints and weak points as creatures fell or retreated. His heart raced, but his mind was sharp. Every movement he had learned in years of living alone and surviving in the forest mattered now. Vela's diversion worked perfectly. The creatures focused on her, giving Elias the chance to pick off anyone who slipped past the traps. The synergy between human intuition and alien technology was unlike anything either had experienced before. One of the command forces tried to flank them from the side, moving silently over rocks and fallen logs. Elias dropped a weighted net trap he had prepared. The creature fell with a loud thud, immobilized. Vela moved back toward the tower, taking down another attacker with a precise strike of her spear. Her armor glowed brighter, feeding off the energy of the surrounding environment. Elias felt a rush of pride, not just for himself but for humanity. Here he was, a simple man from the woods standing alongside an alien warrior facing impossible odds. And they were surviving. Together. The battle raged for what felt like hours, but the combination of traps, strategy, and sheer determination began to turn the tide. Slowly, the command forces started retreating, disorganized and confused. Vela and Elias didn't give them a chance to recover. Every movement was calculated, every strike deliberate. Finally, the last of the command forces stumbled back into the forest. Silence fell again over the valley. Smoke rose from the traps and scorched earth, but the humans and their alien ally remained standing. Vela stepped beside Elias on the tower. She lowered her spear and looked at him. You are remarkable, Elias. Your species. It is not just survival. It is strength. It is creativity. It is defiance. Elias laughed, exhausted and breathless. Defiance? I was just hoping to stay alive, Vela smiled faintly. And yet, you changed the outcome of this battle. You proved they underestimated Earth. Elias leaned against the railing, looking down at the forest below. The trees were damaged, the ground scarred, but the world was still theirs. For now, what happens next? He asked. Vela considered him for a moment. The galaxy now knows about humans. Some will fear you, some will admire you, but none will ignore you again. Elias nodded slowly. He felt a surge of something unfamiliar but powerful. Hope, pride, and a deep sense of connection. Humans had survived countless challenges, and here, on the edge of the galaxy, they had survived again. Vela placed a hand on his shoulder. I will stay for now, to learn, to protect, to understand why your species thrives where others fall. Elias looked at her, a mixture of gratitude and curiosity in his eyes. You think I can teach you something? Vela's purple eyes glimmered. You already have. You have shown me the human spirit. Courage, ingenuity, willpower. That is something no technology or army can destroy. The first light of evening began to stretch across the valley. Elias and Vela stood side by side, looking out over the forest. The wind carried a faint scent of smoke and earth, but also something new, the promise of a future. They won't come back? Elias asked quietly. They will, Vela said, but next time. We will be ready. Elias smiled, feeling the weight of years of solitude lifting. Then let them come. We're ready. Vela glanced at him, then at the horizon. Yes, humanity is not just surviving. You are rising. The wind rustled through the trees as the sun set. painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. From the tower, Elias could see the entire valley. It was quiet now, but alive. And in that moment, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Earth had not just endured. It had stood tall, unbroken, and unafraid. Vela turned to him, her armor glinting in the fading light. "You have my respect, Elias Mercer, and my loyalty as long as you need it." Elias nodded, a grin spreading across his face. "Then let's rebuild. And next time we don't just survive. We make them see what humans are capable of." Vela's eyes shone brighter. Together they watched the forest, the stars, and the sky beyond. Not as hunter and hunted, not as stranger and exile, but as allies, as friends, as Earth and the galaxy meeting in defiance and hope. Because humans didn't just survive. They fought, they endured, and they changed everything.